Have you ever been told that you are out of line? I've been using the month of May to talk about team dynamics, group collaboration, but today I actually thought I would tell a story. It's a real story. It took place several years ago, and it's something that I experienced, which is why I thought I would share it with all of you. Now, when you are leading a team or you're part of a team, it is always easier when everybody is on the same page, when everybody is agreeable, when everybody is very like-minded, they have similar patterns of thought. But this story is about why maybe that is not the right thing when you are leading a team. In fact, I know it's not the right thing. So let me tell you about this story. It took place several years ago. I was an employee, loving my work, really excelling at what I was doing, achieving my goals, having a great time doing so, and building some great relationships with my peers and colleagues. And I was quite literally moving up in the company, and as I was doing so, I was being invited to more and more executive meetings where some really important corporate decisions were being made. And I felt really honored to be invited to these meetings, but I also felt that I had earned my way there and that I was bringing value to the table. Now, I'll be very honest and vulnerable in admitting that for a large part of my career, especially the first half, I was what many would consider a yes man. I was very easy to work with because I wanted to avoid confrontation at all costs. I wanted to make sure that I pleased everybody. And as a result, I think I had colleagues that really enjoyed working with me because I think it was easy to work with me. I was very open-minded. I still am open-minded, but I was also, I think, restraining some of who I really am. I was holding back on some of my ideas, especially if I knew that they would ruffle feathers. Now, I'm thinking of this one particular meeting where there were some really important decisions to be made. And so, of course, everybody was sharing their opinions, their ideas, their perspectives. And I knew that I had contrasting opinions, very different perspectives, ideas that would ruffle feathers, unconventional solutions. But I also knew that these ideas were coming from a place of integrity, of honesty. I was being very transparent, and ultimately I knew that this was for the greater good of the organization. So I felt it was really important that I bring this to the table, even though I knew it may upset some people around that table because they disagreed. So during that meeting, that's exactly what I did. And at the end of that meeting, my boss, who was a senior executive, and most of the people in that meeting reported to this individual, he came up to me and he patted me on the shoulder and he said, "You know what? I'm proud of you. I really like that you brought those ideas to the table, and they were some really interesting ideas. I think we really need to reflect on those. And so, good job." And I walked away feeling great because I felt like I was authentic. I had been true to myself, even though I knew that it may, ruffle a few feathers. Now, a few days later, my boss called me into his office, which wasn't unusual. But he wanted to talk about the meeting that had taken place a few days prior, and I was kind of surprised about what he brought up. So he basically said that he'd realized that I had been out of line during that meeting. And I was baffled. And he said that my ideas really rubbed some people the wrong way. And I could not believe how someone could have, encouraged me and, quite literally patted me on the shoulder and said, "Great job. I'm glad that you brought those ideas to the table because they were really, thought-provoking or interesting ideas that we should reflect on." And now suddenly I was being told that I was out of line. Now, I stood my ground and we discussed it because, I had brought those ideas to the table in a respectful manner. I was still open-minded in presenting my ideas. And again, they came from a place of integrity, honesty, and I really felt that they were in the best interest of the company. And we moved on. But can you imagine how that affected the team dynamics? Could you imagine how that affected group collaboration? It changed something. It definitely changed something in my own mind. And though I continued to work with this company for a while, I also see that moment as a defining point in my career, because I realized that I had spent so much of my life trying to adapt, trying to fit in, but I wasn't being authentic to me. And could you imagine going back into those meetings or, brainstorms? Now suddenly I was showing up at those meetings and I knew that my colleagues had this mindset that if they didn't agree with an idea that was very different from their own, they saw me, or anyone else for that matter, as being out of line. And I also realized that my respective leader, which I had trusted, I felt like he didn't have my back in that moment. And I think that is an important quality. A leader needs to have his team members protected. And I didn't feel protected. I felt a little targeted just because maybe for the first time I had expressed some opinions that people didn't agree with. And so it changed things. It really changed things. Now, I didn't restrain myself. I kept my promise to myself. But I also realized that it wasn't the right work environment for me. I knew that I had to, at some point, move on to a different environment that would match and align my core values and beliefs. Now, I'm not saying that that's the right decision for everybody, but it was the right decision for me. Now, if you are a leader, you are leading a team. It's so much easier when we assemble a team of people that we know will get along. We know that they tend to agree, they tend to think in similar ways. But I'm warning you, when it comes to great team dynamics, when it comes to great collaboration, when it comes to generating some incredible, unconventional solutions to some really big problems, when it comes to generating ideas, it's actually much better when you have a diverse group, when you have people coming together that have contrasting opinions, different perspectives, different backgrounds, because that clash of ideas, that I wouldn't call it conflict, I would call it friction. When it's well managed by a leader, when an environment is set up where people feel empowered to bring their ideas to the table, even though they know that their ideas may ruffle some feathers, that is when you're getting the best out of people. Not just out of people, but also, I truly believe, for your organization. This is what you want. You want this exciting, thriving group of people coming together and working out their differences so that they align with the corporation's objectives. This is really what I firmly believe in. And so when I walk into an organization, these are some of the first things that I try to look for. I try to see if teams feel empowered to express their ideas even when they know that they may not be supported by everyone in the team. I try to look to see how organizations are facilitating brainstorms. Is everybody showing up? Or are some people holding back? And that's the last thing you want. You don't want people showing up and then holding back. You want everybody to reach their full potential. You want everybody to feel like they are in this together. And so think about that. Is that the kind of environment, A, you want to work in, and B, you want to lead?